Well, first off, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to the group. I fundamentally believe that helping women to overcome some of the challenges to become more equal in terms of opportunity, in terms of pay, and in terms of place in the workplace is just critical to the success of our species. And so, as a father of two girls, this is near and dear to my heart, but it's also the right thing to do, right? And there are many opportunities that we can leverage to make a difference. So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to Techrity. So thank you. So that said, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my presentation, which you should see now. And let me know if you can't see it. I can have other ways to make it bigger. So today we're going to talk about how to deal with the worldwide challenge of gender disparity in technology. It's a big challenge. It's not just something that you find in Africa. We struggle with it in the US and everywhere else in the world. But let's first start off with a quick exercise. I want to get you guys engaged from the beginning. So get ready to think. Are you ready? Here we go. So 15 seconds.
Yes.
What is the best advice that you have ever received? And you don't have to tell me, but just think about it in your mind. All right. So I'm going to start off by sharing some of the best advice I ever got. And this comes from one of my friends, one of my business partners here in the United States. Her name is Adrienne Newland. She's all over Instagram. You can find her at Adrienne is VIP. Is her Instagram handle. She's a wonderful person, but she always drops knowledge like every conversation that you have with her. And she didn't realize it, but she taught me something that I talk to my kids about all the time and something that I think about all the time, both from my perspective as well as other people's perspective. And what she said was, you have to teach people how to treat you. Right. And this is really important in business because many times you'll have people that might disrespect you, either intentionally or unintentionally. And you kind of have to push back. You have to say, no, if we're going to interact, if we're going to have a relationship, I need you to do the following things. Otherwise, I don't see another reason for us to continue speaking. Right. It's a very powerful position and one that I admire that, she was able to articulate so well. So this quote is going to be really important in just a few minutes. So I want you to remember this quote because we're going to bring it up in just a few more minutes. So let's talk about the problem here. And the problem is that women are missing out on the tech employment boom. Technology jobs are increasing at an exponential rate, yet women's participation is not. And the representation of women has actually gone down despite the growing number of jobs, right? So this is not just a, hey, we need to keep up. This is a, hey, there's a bigger problem here, right? The overall trend is going down, but in terms of representation, but even though the overall jobs are going up. So let's take a look at that, right? Like when you look at individual sectors, right? And this is a Pew Research study. You look across time, right? And across different verticals within different businesses. So from health-related industries, life sciences like pharmaceuticals and medical devices, mathematics and science, and even engineering are all seeing an increase in the participation of women as a percentage of the overall employee ratio. But there's one exception, and that is in computer roles, right? So technology jobs. We see that from 1990 until 2016, there's actually been a decrease, right? 32% of roles were in 1990 were dedicated to women, but in 2016, that's gone down to 25%. All right, is there a question? Okay. If you have a question, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, if you could keep your line on mute, that would be really helpful. Great. So we'll keep going. So there's a big challenge here, right? We're seeing the opposite trend of what we would expect to see. And that what makes this really maddening is that women are phenomenal, right? Like they're crushing it everywhere they get the chance to be in leaderships or get roles, right? And the evidence is all around us, right? All you have to do is look at the news, right? So there have been studies done everywhere, from Bloomberg to HBR to Pew Research, and what we see is that in 2021, the nations that were led by women did a whole lot better dealing with the coronavirus and the pandemic than the countries that were led by men. When you look at leadership competence, right, women are stronger as rated by their employees. And women typically handle crises better in the business. So there's a clear case here that women have a lot to offer, and they can do a lot to impact both families, companies, and nations. So what can we do about this? And so the purpose of me or my time today is to give you 5 ideas, like 5 ways that we can support women in the workplace using my real world experience working at Adobe. So the first one of these is something called a women's employee network. And employee networks are employee-led groups led by the members of the underserved community. So women is one. In the United States, we have a Black employees network, we have an Asian employees network, et cetera. At Adobe, the Women's Employee Network drives numerous networking opportunities for women across the globe, and it helps offer career development programs for female employees. The group meets for lunch every month to discuss different issues facing women and to celebrate each other's achievements. It organizes guest speakers and panel discussions with leaders and participates in nonprofit volunteer activities. The network has many different programs for women, and one that's of note is the Women at Adobe Mentoring Program. It launched 2 years ago, and it's a 6-month program tailored to female leaders within the company who are interested in furthering their careers. Another example of the valuable output from this group is a new video series called Adobe We. And these videos feature candid conversations among leadership that are women about to Adobe employees about topics of importance like navigating your career, building influence, and exercising your seat at the table. So really important. The next way to support women in the workplace is through leadership circles. And leadership circles is an idea that we have to find another way to develop women leaders, right? And so there are many different opportunities at Adobe that vary in length, right? The Women's Employee Network is an ongoing program, right? It meets once a month. But we also have more dedicated programs, right? And the Women's the Women's Leadership Program, or Circles, is a 10-month program that equips emerging female leaders with lifelong skills to drive their leadership, career, and continued success. The program provides women at Adobe with strategies and practices that put the reins of their careers in their hands. It helps them build their presence and enable them to succeed, right? So connecting the people that have succeeded with the people that are looking to succeed. Third on our list is the Women's Executive Shadowing Program. And one of my favorite quotes is, if you can see it, you can be it, right? So if you see women that look like you who are in leadership roles and succeeding, it's much easier to imagine yourself doing that. And so the idea here is that we find a way to provide leadership and career development opportunities for women employees. Now, this one is shorter. It's a 1-day shadowing experience where female employees get paired up with key leaders in the company, but they get to experience a day in the life of the executive. And so women get to see firsthand what it's like to manage and lead teams, consult with clients, and strategize on business goals. Was there a question?
Hello?
Hi. Do you have any questions? Okay,
you can drop your question on the chat.
Perfect. And then we'll come back to the questions at the end.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So fourth on our list of 5 is pay and opportunity parity. And really a better way to say this is transparency. And this is getting companies to commit to analyzing and understanding their diversity status, and then setting goals to accomplish parity in pay as well as opportunity. And so to provide employees with a workplace that's inclusive, innovative, and exceptional, companies have to be transparent with their diversity goals. Pay parity is ensuring that employees in the same job and location are paid fairly to one another, regardless of their gender or ethnicity. It requires an analysis of employee pay within job families and location, and then adjustment of that employee's pay to be fair. Opportunity parity is fairness in promotions and horizontal movement across demographic groups. The key here is transparency, setting goals, and providing updates to the company on progress toward those goals. Lastly is providing women-friendly benefits. This is a great way for companies to support women. Good examples of benefits that might be specific to women that can really encourage a fair and equitable workspace are things like appropriate maternity leave, educational reimbursement for further education, or additional money for short-term learning opportunities. Companies can also cover online learning tools, extracurricular activities, books, activity kits, and art supplies to help parents and with childcare and remote learning. So there are ways that companies can extend, their profits back to the employees and help them be better employees by understanding that it's tough to be a parent, it's tough to be a wife, it's tough to be a mom, right? And by helping parents be flexible with their schedules, by helping them with resources, it actually promotes loyalty, and it helps the employees to be better employees and more productive. So what if you don't run a company, right? Hey, you might be thinking, I can't do any of this, right? Like I'm an employee, or I want to be an employee. And so a big lesson that I learned this past year was that if you see something you don't like, or if you see something that's missing, you have to be the voice to make that change. And so if you remember my quote from earlier that I raised from Adrian, is that you have to teach people how to treat you. Well, let's modify this a little bit. In fact, let's say you have to teach your company how you want to be treated. And so as you gain, employment, as you gain experience, you're going to have the opportunity to communicate with your company about ways that they can be better. And so in the same way that this teacher is teaching these students in this picture, you can think of yourself as teaching your company and demanding that change occur. And so by organizing with, other people at your company, you can affect change. And, no matter how small, all change is useful as long as it supports, a more fair and equitable workspace. And so in summary, there's 5 ways that we can, 5 easy ways, I think, that you can support women in the workplace. And if you're a company, this should be your list. If you're an employee, this is your list of things to ask for. And if you are looking to work with a tech company someday, these are the type of things that you need to look for in the companies that you want to work for. And if one company has a better offering for women and is more focused on helping to promote them, pardon me, you might think more about working for that company as opposed to another company. Oh, one other thing. So I want to make sure that I give you something that's really actionable, and it's that you can apply right away. And so I want to, as you go through your interview processes, right, and you start talking with companies, one question that you'll inevitably be asked is, what are your salary requirements for this tech job, right? What do you want to be paid? Well, if you've never been in a role before, or you think you might be getting underpaid today, how do you handle this type of question? And how do you do so in a way that gives you the best opportunity to make the most money that you can, and ultimately take the best care of your family that you can? And what I want to leave you with is that there's a great way to handle this question, and that is to return it with another question. And that is to ask the interviewer, what is the average pay range for this position? So you put it back on the interviewer and ask them, what is normal for the role? Because if you come in too low, they might pay you that. You might be surprised at what you find is the average pay. So don't box yourself into a lower salary just because you don't know what the average pay is. So I hope this was really, really helpful. And I wanted to say a quick thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak to your group. I wish you continued success and hope the best for you and everything that you look to accomplish. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and we can go to any open questions.
Okay, thank you very much, boss, for that section. We have a few questions here.
Sure. All right, I'll open it up.
Okay. So the first one is, does bringing people together with difficult background reinforce bad behaviors?
I want to be careful in how I answer that because I'm different than other people, right? And you guys are different than me. I'm different from you. We have different backgrounds, right? So I don't want to assume that I understand the scope of what difficult backgrounds means. But what I will tell you is that bringing people together does not necessarily mean that bad behaviors are going to continue. There's a really great YouTube channel called what is it? Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. You should definitely check it out. The person that runs it his name is Emmanuel Acho, and one of the things he says over and over is that distance breeds fear, but closeness brings understanding. And so the more that we can understand each other, the more that we can listen to each other, the better off that we are. Because at the end of the day, empathy is the most important skill that we can have to understand where others are coming from. And so as long as the two groups are willing to listen to each other and to have grace, then there's, I don't see a potential for that reinforcement of bad behaviors, but we have to communicate, and being closer together is going to open up that opportunity to communicate about our differences and ultimately help us to be better humans.
Okay. So the second one is, when it comes to inclusion, how do you foster an environment where people who come from different backgrounds know and value your ideas?
Yeah, that's a great question. So fostering an environment, I think there's two ways to handle this. There's a group or a type of role that you can play, right? So as a white male, I have a lot of advantages that many other people don't have, right? Like I would say there are many challenges in my life that I have not had to deal with, right? And that has naturally put me in leadership positions. It's put me in positions where I'm facilitating and in charge of a group. And it's not fair, but it's the reality. And it's also not right. And so what I recognize is that there's an opportunity as a facilitator of a group, as a leader of a group, to make sure that everyone's voice is heard, right? To make sure that ideas are not overrun, right? So a really good example is you might, if you find yourself in a leadership role, you might see that there are quiet people in your meeting, right? A lot of times women tend to be quieter on group calls than men. Men like to dominate the calls. And women, but that doesn't mean that the women's ideas are any less valuable. In fact, a lot of times the smartest person in the room is the woman that's in the corner over there not talking. And so what you have to do as the facilitators, you have to bring them in and you have to listen to their ideas, however meek they might sound. And you have to bring the attention back to them. You have to say, you know what, John, that's a great idea that you just said, but that sounds a whole lot like Mary's idea. Mary, can you tell us a little bit more about your idea and what you meant, right? Don't allow other people to take credit for that woman's ideas, right? So, you know, different backgrounds aside, it's about making sure that everyone is heard and has an opportunity, and that you don't let people with charismatic or extrovert orientations dominate the conversation.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll be taking the last question before we jump into the next section. What extra encouragement can you give to those women in tech who feel they aren't growing?
First off, it's hard, right? Like I totally get that. As a man, I feel like I'm not growing a lot, right? So you are not alone, and it's not because you're a woman, right? Now is a great time in the history of our civilization, because you now have access to knowledge and education with any computer, right? You can go to YouTube, you can go to online learning programs, and you can teach yourself. Further, you can also find work throughout the world to, start to contribute your skills. And so there's a great opportunity now, more than there ever has been, to empower yourself with knowledge. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, is learning as much as you can, and finding people that are willing to help you, right? Because feeling a little bit discouraged or unmotivated is totally natural. You just have to dust yourself off, pick yourself up, keep going, and network with other people like yourself, where you can start to work together collaboratively. And if you notice, there's a theme in all of the ways that I shared today, is that it's not, yes, the company supports us, but I say us. Yes, the company supports the underserved communities like women, of which I'm not a part of. But really, it's the people that are a part of that organization and a part of that underserved group who are leading the change and demanding that change, right? So don't wait for others to make things happen for you. You can be the catalyst of that change, and you can be the one that demands and ultimately implements that change. It might take a long time, right? I'm not saying my company is very focused on change and being good and good citizens, but we're in technology, and that's very characteristic of the type of company that I work for. I was looking at some of the West African companies, like the largest ones in West Africa, and there's a lot of construction companies there, right? A lot of cement companies. And, for you to walk into a cement company that's going to be, like a lot of hard manual labor, and start demanding lots of change, it may be tougher, right, to have that kind of impact, right? So you have to recognize, where is it possible to make change, and focus your efforts there.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dossey.
Absolutely.
I'm inspired.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for asking me to speak. I'm really honored for the opportunity, and I wish you all the best. I'm going to sign off and start my morning, but I wish you all a great afternoon. I saw that you guys posted my Twitter handle. Please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. And if you see jobs at Adobe that are applicable for your location, please reach out. I'm happy to refer you internally, and I'll do everything that I can to help you, either at Adobe or with anything else. So please consider me a resource.
Okay, thank you very much.
You got it. Y'all have a great day.